Hello, hello, and welcome to another forecast. This one is for the upcoming Leo new moon on the 4th of August. And this is actually happening on a Sunday. I just recorded a card reading for that week, and I said we didn't have any big lunations in that week, and then realized, hang on a second, the new moon falls on a Sunday. So we in fact do have a big lunation right at the end of that week. And what's interesting is the very next day on the Monday, Mercury stations retrograde and Venus steps into Virgo. So here is our new moon, sun and moon together in the sky, which is always the case at new moon at 12 degrees of Leo. And at the very final degree of the sign, we have Venus, who will be stepping out of the sign the very next day after the new moon. This is quite powerful because the first and last sign degree of a sign is very potent. So we'll get into that a little bit. And then also, I don't know why it's giving me that little sign, sorry. And then also Mercury has stationed. He's basically not moving at all, but he hasn't yet actually had this retrograde energy, and that begins the next day as well. And that's also important because a planet, as it's stationing, either to go retrograde or direct, is also at an exceptionally powerful, not only degree point, but also energy. The energy is most excessive within that retrograde process at the turning points of that retrograde. So remember, I said the first and the last sign of a degree. So look here, we have Venus here at 29 degrees. We have Neptune here at 29 degrees of Pisces. And we have Pluto at 0 degrees of Aquarius. So this is a powerful energy that's going on. Now, this is actually, for those of you who've been following astrology for a while, you will know that Pluto who has a 250 plus year orbit. So it takes him 250 years to go around the whole zodiacal wheel. That's a hang of a long cycle. So his movement is very slow. So when he begins to change signs, it's a very slow process. And because of retrogrades, and he retrogrades for about half of every year, there is this back and forth, this vacillating in the liminal land between the sign he's moving from and the sign he's moving to. So last year, for the first time, he dipped his toe into Aquarius from Capricorn for a short while, but then he moved back into Capricorn. And then this year, he's basically will spend most of his time in Aquarius, but he is going to dip his toe back into Capricorn. The next time he comes back into Aquarius, that's it. We're there for 20 years. So it's an extremely slow process. But as I said, first and last degrees are very intense. So we know Pluto's been doing this transformative breaking down to break through into something new, between ending his journey of that kind of breaking down, dissolution process in Capricorn, and the beginnings of this big Aquarian journey that's going to take the next 20 years. And this is the first new moon because Aquarius is the sign opposite to Leo. So this is the first Leo new moon that is opposite Pluto. Now, you can see there's no red line connecting sun and moon here to Pluto because it's not opposite by degree, but it is opposite by sign. We have degree orbs, so we wouldn't say that 12 degrees would constitute an opposition. However, it is by the flavor and the energy and the archetypal conversation in terms of the opposite signs. So this, even though it's not a tight one, it's not super obvious and intense, it's going to begin to show us the next 20 new moons in Leo, ostensibly, and how they will have to face off against that deeply transformative Plutonic energy. Now, another reason this is quite interesting for me is that Leo is the sign of the sovereign, of the ruler, the king or the queen. In this case, we could say the sun being the king and in fact the ruler of the archetype of Leo, and the moon being the queen. We could see that both the masculine and feminine sort of rulers are in that sign, in the throne room, sitting in their thrones, holding court. And opposite them is this really troublesome, if there's something that needs changing, which there invariably is when Pluto transits somewhere, there's this troublesome energy of Pluto in Aquarius. So now we have to say to ourselves, what is the thing that needs to change? Because Pluto wants to change the way we rule. And it's not just about me, the ruler. It's about, well, what about the kingdom and the queendom? Because that's more where the Aquarian energy is, or the queen bee and the hive mind would be Aquarius. So Pluto is standing there on the opposite side, challenging that Leo energy to face the darkness, to face what is dysfunctional in your rulership. So, of course, this, we could take that into a much more literal space if we looked at the politics of the world, and that is playing out and will continue to. But where do we bring that into our own life? How do I rule my world? How do I stay authentic and sovereign and become that benevolent leader of my life? As a mother, as a father, as a parent to young children versus adult children, as a spouse, as a business partner, as a daughter or son, and all of those kind of archetypal, all of those kind of roles that you play. How do I rule from that space? Do I rule in a dictatorial, egomaniacal kind of way? Or do I rule by listening to what others have to say? And this is something that, depending on how you lead your life, because that leadership quality of Leo, how do I lead my life? And how does that impact others? Because it's the reflection from the others, the Aquarius energy, that's really going to start to show up more and more and more strongly. This is how people see me. Maybe you didn't even know that was how people saw you, and you didn't think you were that way, but that kind of thing's going to start showing up. And then you get to say, well, actually, I like that part of me, and I want to stick with that. I want to build that up, or I don't. I'm going to let that break down. I'm going to release this part of me. Yes, it means that I'm the boss, or yes, it means that I'm in control, but I don't like the way that I am the boss or in control, or whatever the case may be. So there's an interesting flavor here, and it's very much at the inception point of Pluto showing us these things. And as I say, the first new moon for the next 20 in Leo, the first Leo new moon. So that will be once a year. Okay, we'll have that Leo new moon. And then at the same time, Venus speaks into our value system. So here we have Venus in the very last degree. And here she's saying, really look at what you value about Leo things: leadership, authenticity, playfulness, hobbies, creativity, children. So that can be your actual children, because Leo has a strong affinity to that, but it could be also like your fur babies or your plant babies or your projects that you've built from infancy, kind of thing. It can be any of those types of things. Where do I enjoy speculating and taking that next step? Where do I find my courage? What do I value in that? And Leo also is quite good at taking the time, as I said, play, to enjoy some downtime, to find that space of, well, I'm the king or the queen of my world, and I don't have to be always working. I can also be served. Okay, so what do I value in that sort of space? And taking the value of that versus, well, how is that negatively impacting the people in my life? So now I've gotten so lazy lying out in the sun lounger that I haven't done any work, and now there's no supper on the table. Like looking at the dynamic, the give and take interplay between those two archetypes, which is really going to be kind of bookended with the 0-degree Pluto in Aquarius and the 29-degree Venus in Leo. It's really giving us a little bit of a feel into that, but the actual sun and moon are more in the middle of that archetype. So not obviously connecting to Venus and Pluto, but kind of being held in this awareness of that. Then adding to that, and these two are in a conjunction, Venus and Mercury, although they're in out of sign conjunction, because she is still in Leo and he is still in Virgo. But it's an applying conjunction, which means it's getting stronger, because Venus is moving towards Mercury, and Mercury is about to be moving backwards towards Venus. So they're going to be coming together in this like interesting culminating energy. And when planets come together, they begin a new cycle with one another. So there's this interesting dynamic about Venus and her values. Like, what do we value? How do we show our love? How do we want to receive love from others? And how do I attract to me that which I want? And Mercury, how do I tell my story? What is my inner narrative? What kind of words do I speak? And because that starts in Virgo, it's also saying, where am I really critical of myself and others? Where am I a bit nitpicky? Where am I so set on being perfect that I don't do anything? I procrastinate and get nothing done. Where do I get pedantic? Those are the kind of challenging aspects that we're going to be reflecting on as Mercury heads back through the first 4 degrees of Venus. And of Mercury, of Virgo, which it's the ruler of, incidentally. And at that same sort of process, we're having that overlapping of Venus and Mercury. Venus is moving out of Leo, where she's in this kind of regal space of feeling herself the queen. And she steps into this kind of place she's not actually really very comfortable in, Virgo, where now she's got Mercury with all these thoughts going, and she starts maybe doubting herself. Maybe that isn't how I should value life anymore. Now, this could be uncomfortable, but it might also bring up for you some of the same transformative energies of Pluto saying, but if that's what you value, how does that impact everybody else in your family, in your life, but also in the world? Because if that becomes very selfish, which Leo energy can lean into, or always putting yourself first and harming others. And I'm not saying self-care. I mean, I feel like that's a very important part of Leo energy. And this is a new moon where we want to look at what are healthy self-care practices. What is a healthy way to put me first, but not in a way where it is detrimental to others. So Venus is also going to have this like inner narrative of, wow, maybe this thing that seemed to hold so much value for me actually isn't so great for me because it hurts others. And karmically, if we're out hurting others, it's not great for us anyway, even though it feels good at the time. Like Venus is very much about sweetness. So, you want to eat all those sweet treats, and then there's all the shame and regret that comes with it. You can kind of see it that way. Like I do what feels good and tastes good and was good in the moment, but maybe I shouldn't have, and now I have regrets. Okay, so that's where Venus is going to come and maybe become a little more discerning. In the meantime, Mercury will come back into Leo, so that's also going to happen. But we're speaking more into the energy at this new moon. So at new moon, we're feeling this potential. New moon is a seed time. It is a potential. And from new moon to new moon, which is 29.5 days, we have a theme. So whatever this chart says gives us a theme for the whole month or month. So what's going to happen, the dynamic that's about to happen with Venus and Mercury, we can feel it in the seed, in the inception of this month, beginning of this lunar cycle. So then we also have a really lovely sort of trine angle here, a sextile angle, excuse me, between Jupiter, who's also very benevolent and it's a very supportive, friendly, harmonious energy between Jupiter, who is benevolent. He loves to give, he loves to explore, he loves to expand things, and he is supporting the sun and moon in this position. So that's going to be nice for us. But he is also within about a week from this point, so within the lunar cycle, he's going to have a conjunction with Mars. Mars is applying to that conjunction, and that might be a little bit more uncomfortable because Mars is known as a malefic and Jupiter as a benefic. So Jupiter's gregarious, larger than life bigness might suddenly kind of feel very hot, very angry, very aggravated, because Mars can have an aggravating effect. We may also find that we get a huge momentum in a project because Gemini is information, content driven, studying up on sharing information type of things out in the world. And at the time that this happens, Mercury in the chart will be retrograde, and he is the ruler of Gemini. But that energy might find us having a burst forward of something, but also maybe we'll have to go back. We'll burst forward with the project, and then we went too fast. And because of the retrograde, we might have to go back. But that could look like a lot of things. I'm just starting to plant little seeds of different things throughout this lunar cycle that may come up for you. And I also want to point out, can you see that there's this really, really dark blue line here? So that is a tighter orb of aspect. also a sextile between between the first degree of Pluto in Aquarius to the last degree of Neptune in Pisces. And just as Pluto has been doing this backing and forthing over the last degree, the 29 degrees Capricorn to 0 degrees Aquarius for the last few years, next year, I nearly said tomorrow, but next year, the same movement begins with Neptune, and Neptune's about 150-year cycle, so a little less, but still a lot. So that process of going from the final degree of the entire zodiac, which is where Neptune is right now, 29 degrees of Pisces, into the first degree of the entire zodiac, 0 degrees of Aries. So there is a big shift happening here. And we'll also have the other outer planet, which is Uranus, also beginning his exit from his sign next year out of Taurus and into Gemini. His is an 84-year cycle, so this journey won't be quite as slow, but again, very powerful. And to have 3 outer planets moving into new signs around the same time as they are now, I might stand to be corrected. Don't quote me on this, but I don't think this has happened since about the 1700s. So I mean, this is a big deal, and these are far out planets, slow moving planets. This is something that we will feel societally, just globally. You know, it's inevitable. We are already, not will, we are, and it's going to carry on. But I just want to mention what's nice about Pluto and Neptune, and this will be my last little note on this for this forecast. But what's really nice about this energy between them, if we think about all the things we spoke about, that interfacing between how are you the best ruler or authority in your life in order to be the best for your community, for your kingdom and queendom, and that whole development, because there is a breaking down of the societal norms and everything that we have known right now, and that will really be very, very obvious. It's already been for the last 16 years, because Capricorn is the old order, and Pluto did 16 years in Capricorn, the old order, top-down power. And now we're going into the new way of leadership, the how do we be more like power with the people, equal, everybody in the hive has a say. That's the kind of energy that's developing now for the next 20 years. Remember, it's a long story. So this is, Pluto is about power dynamics shifting. Pluto is about change and transformation and the breaking down of things. The need for us to give up that which we no longer need. And then Neptune is all about the dream, the ideal, the next thing that we need to imagine into. And that's Neptune in the final degrees, like in the birth canal before birthing into the new beginning of Aries, again, over the next little while. So for me, this is a very powerful dynamic where the two of them are working together. Yes, we're breaking things down, but we're also dreaming into being something better. So I hope that has been helpful. Thank you so much for your time. And I look forward to seeing you again for the next forecast. Please remember to like, share, follow, subscribe, do all those things. And I will be back for the next forecast. Thank you so much.